Up first tonight, we have the MWRA discussion about the pipelines, and that's with Fred Lansky. You going to switch us over, Emmett?
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to allowing us to come here this evening. I have with me Pat Barrett, who is the project engineer on this project, and I also have Fred Brandon, who is the deputy chief engineer for the authority on the water side. They're the engineers who can answer the complicated questions. What I'd like to do is, and what Mr. Gucci has requested, is that I give you an update on the study, if you will, of the preparation for the pipeline that we would like and hope to build up through Stoneham. I want to make sure I get this right. Again, the Northern Intermediate Service Area, which is where Stoneham is located, is the only service area without redundancy or redundant pump station, and it is the only spot in our service area that has what's called pre-stressed concrete cylinder pipe. And this is a pipe that was built in the 70s. It is basically a concrete pipe with bands of steel, almost like a radial tire in it. And there's a certain type of that made by a certain manufacturer that is flawed. Some 20 years or 30 years later, they've now found that the interaction between the concrete and the steel, the bands of steel, which are wound very tight, are corroding. And and I apologize for not having a picture of it. I believe I had a picture of it at an earlier presentation. When it goes, it blows open in a catastrophic way. And I don't know if we have the map. If you look down to the bottom left, you see that dotted line. That's the PCC pipe. And part of what we're doing here is to create redundancy if that fails. And I've been asked on numerous occasions, why does Stoneham have to put up with the headache of this pipeline, whose sole purpose is to help Reading and potentially North Reading, which are coming in? And that, obviously, part of this project is to provide redundancy in this service area that would also help Reading as well. However, if that pipe were to blow out of the ground, and we have the serial numbers, we know it's the type of pipe that has been blown out of the ground in different parts of the country, it would be short minutes before you'd see a drop in your pressure in Stoneham, and within an hour or so it would be out of water. So it is an important project for Stoneham as well as for the other communities in this service area. As you may recall, we came in with the concept of coming out of the Gillis Pump Station down along the shores of Spot Pond, come along Woodland Road, up that way, past the zoo, and then go up the right side or the east side of Route 28 with the mandate from the town that we not go on to Main Street, that the disruption to Main Street would be problematic. We spent a lot of time and a lot of effort scouting the route up through there and did a lot of borings. And at the previous presentation I showed you, it basically is all rock. And one of the wise people here said deadpan, well, why do you think they call it Stoneham? Well, we found out in that project there's a lot of rock, and it wouldn't have been constructible. So we came back to you and asked for permission to see if there was something that was some alignment off of Main Street that we could go up on the west side of Route 28 to get up to the north. And we have a report here this evening that we'd like to show to you with a possible alignment up that side of Route 28 and then up to North Street and across and hook up there. I will point out that we continue to proceed with the work and the preparation on the Reading part, the northern part of this loop. And you can see the blue pipe, the current water mains. And up to the top there, you can see what I'd call pinkish purple, and then a little bit of lime green. And the lime green, or the yellow, is under construction right now, and that's in advance of a highway department project that's coming up on West Street in Reading. And they asked us to get in and put that piece of pipe in before they came in and redid the road. So that's under construction literally right now. The pink is going to be coming in the near future and bring that loop around Reading and back down to the green section, which you may recall a couple of years ago we did a section of pipe underneath the 128-95 overpass on Route 28 to connect the Reading system to the Stoneham system down to North Street. That pipe is already in the ground. So what's going to occur at the pink is that they're going to make that loop around. So we'll have the water going up through Woburn. It'll loop around and come down basically to North Street in Stoneham. Then the question is, how do we get from the Gillis Pump Station up to that location at the intersection of 128, or 28 and 95? And what we have here tonight is a possible alignment that we'd like to lay out. We've done some borings, we've done some surveys. We believe it is constructible, and we'd like to talk with you about that alignment. And I will say that part of it is on Main Street, from the Friendlies up to Marble Street, up past the school, and then would snag a left on Marble Street. I believe it's Marble Street, correct? And then take a right and go up that way. But I think what I'd like to do is have Mr. Barrett come up and get into the details of the engineering, and then we can obviously answer any questions that you may have or concerns.
So, as Fred points out, we've already started construction on that yellow portion on West Street. Our next contract that we're looking to put out from this project is the pink at the top in Reading. We're actually looking to have a construction start of that in, should I get the right one?
15, right?
By August of 15. So basically, we're looking to bid this project next spring and have it awarded, so we'll be starting late summer. If we can pull it up a little closer, we will. The next two projects out are the Stoneham projects, and right now what we're planning on is the Purple project, which is a 48-inch pipe that will, you can see the limits of the work up there. It's roughly 8,600 feet of pipe, Stoneham project, 7,200 feet of pipe for that project. It's a 48-inch diameter. That would be bid the following spring, summer timeframe, with an August construction start date also, August of 16. Immediately following behind that bidding project, we would bid the Orange project, which is 14,400 feet of 48-inch diameter pipe also. You would have the two contracts running concurrently in town. The advantage, what we're proposing by running them concurrently, two different contractors, is we have the ability then to, instead of one large contract, them trying to work their way through town, both contracts work simultaneous schedules. We get out of the town faster. We have, everyone gets done quicker on this one. Right now, what we're proposing is by August of 2019 on our schedule, if we go forward, we're completed.
I'm sorry, what date did you say?
August of 2019.
And when was the start date?
For the Stoneham project is August of 16, so 3 years of construction.
John has a question.
Yeah, what's the new pipe you're using now? I mean, you're not gonna be coming back in 20 years to do this one over, are you?
No, well, our pipe selection is not made yet, but the most recent project we have going in for West Street was ductile iron. It's likely what we'll stick with is for ductile iron for this project
Should last a
also.
while.
Pardon me?
It should last a while.
Yes,
50 to 100 years.
yes.
And another question? We supposedly have something in the works where North meets Main with Department of Transportation. They're gonna be doing that intersection over. Have you been in contact with them? I don't want you guys all getting there at the same time. I don't know when you're gonna be at North and Main, but I don't want you to stop that development. We've been waiting a long time to have that intersection
No,
done.
I think what we could do is if we knew it was coming, we could rush forward and do that section. That's what we're doing in the yellow there, up in Reading. That's because it's a similar type situation.
Dave, can you coordinate that, please? I don't wanna,
We
I
are
don't
on
want
the
the
tip.
state's, when the state's ready, the state
Are
meaning
we
the
hitting-
DOT, we want them to finish that, because we've been waiting for that.
I don't know if we're hitting that part of town, 'cause we're not going up Main, are we coming back up Main Street?
You're coming back at North and Main,
Are you
right?
coming back up
North and
Street?
Main, we come back
You come back
across
up,
and go
okay.
up Prospect
I see.
with another branch of this.
And that's
yes.
where they're doing
Okay, I
that
get
intersection,
you.
so,
Okay.
Right.
and we've been waiting
Right.
for the state to do it, so we don't want to tell them no.
Right now, the connection is on the east side of Main, on 28.
Yep.
So we would be coming from the west side, so we'd have to come across there. But we could easily expedite that and get that done quick. Or we could put that in, we could pay the highway department to do that too. That would be another method that we've used in coordinating with them. In other words, it becomes part of their bid that they're gonna put in 500 feet of pipe. Either way, we can get that done.
That would-
We're
I
sensitive to
appreciate
that.
that, thank you,
Yeah,
yeah.
that can
We
be
just don't want to hold that up.
Yeah, I mean, as Fred points out, that's actually one of the reasons West Street's in construction now, is we're trying to be in advance of a large MassDOT roadway reconstruction project, so.
Want to walk through the actual alignment of the streets?
We can, well, so some of this alignment stays what was originally proposed. We started at Gillis Pump Station for the new, and we come up Woodland to south, and south turns onto Main. We turn onto Marble and head up Wright Street. We understand Wright Street is, say, relatively narrow street, but it's not too bad. We get up from Wright, goes to Cottage, and then we get to the intersections of Elm and William Street. One of the things we actually had worked with the DPW department on part of this alignment was we originally were looking to turn on Elm on to come up Main Street, and rather than going up Main Street, at their suggestion, they said, what about Oak? Can we stay off it? So that we used that as our alignment, and we actually come up Oak to that little leg of forest onto North Street and come across Main and up Prospect to feed a new meter for the city of Wakefield as part of this project.
The main challenge that we know there is we know that there's a big storm drain that goes across Oak,
Oak Street, yeah.
and that we would jack underneath that, which is pretty standard. You'd probably dig a 20-foot pit on either side, and you'd jack the pipe right under it without disrupting that. I know Mr. Radigan was concerned about that.
We have a school on Oak Street too, so make sure there's enough
Yes,
detail,
Yes,
whatever you need to,
further
with all the
up,
heavy
we-
equipment there and everything.
What we would do is, on most of our projects, especially along this lines, is we coordinate with the town, and, you know, in front of the school, we would actually work contractor, work the summer months. Get that work done in front of there so we can get away from there during the school years. So,
Can I ask a question more to Dave than anyone else, but can we really coordinate this section? So if we have to replace gas lines in the area, or install gas lines, or anything that, like, we know is going into the ground there, we'd like to, I'm not even sure if the storm drains have to be replaced. I don't know what you know,
I
is that
would
something we
have to-
worry
Well,
about?
as for this one particular storm drain, it's relatively new. It was
Is it?
completed, I think, 10 years ago, something like
Okay.
that. So that's not really an
That's
issue.
not an issue.
And we have a sewer there also, one of our interceptors that runs next to it that we'll be getting underneath also.
And that sewer's in good shape now? or-
Yes,
It is,
yeah.
okay.
Once we know the definite route,
Yeah.
we would have Public Works reach out to the utilities and do an assessment of the conditions of all of the pipes on
Okay.
that route, and then make plans with the MWRA to update or change or repair whatever needs to be done on those streets. The one thing that we don't have much control over is the intersection of North and 28. That's a mass highway road. It is on the tip, I think it's on the tip for 2016, and we could coordinate with Mass DOT and the MWRA to ensure that they're not gonna conflict with each other. But we wouldn't have the control over that schedule, it would be a DOT
We
schedule.
just don't want to tell the state no.
Correct.
These guys would have a better control over it than us, then, I would imagine.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
We have actually worked well with MassDOT on this type of project. Again, West Street, we coordinate with them so we could get there ahead of time.
Good.
They actually delayed their schedule a little bit so we could get our work done. In this case, coordinating that level of effort at just that, for 500 feet of pipe, either, again, as Fred points out, they do the project for us, we pay them, or we just simply jump out there just in advance of them. As for other utilities and things along that lines, we select this route, we decide this is a reasonable route from the boring program and from everything else. We would then reach out to the gas company as much as ourselves. We're actually doing it in Reading right now on the project that's going out with them. They have an old gas main that's in our alignment. We're actually coordinating with them right now to say, all right, you're in our zone of influence, we're gonna be bothering your pipe no matter what. You get out there 6 months in advance of us. Move your pipe to the other side of the road in this case, with a new pipe so that we can actually take that alignment because that's our preferred route. So the gas company will be coordinated with us as part of the project. So we would do the same thing in Stone.
So we'd be digging the same road up twice, though, like 6 months later? Or-
Typically, what we try to do is keep the gas company out just in front of us if we can. That allows it, they would dig the road up anywhere from, you know, a month, they've been sometimes a month in front of us, sometimes only days in front of us, but up to 6 months in front of us, where the road was, gas main was put in. The actual West Street in Reading, the gas company was there probably about 3 months in advance of us, doing their work, and then we came behind them doing our work, so.
But, like, we're having a bear of a time trying to get these patches done well. And particularly, I think if they know it's gonna be a 3-month patch, that would be a concern that I'd have.
Yep.
Yeah, but that would be, in this case, that'd be temporary till we came through.
Right,
And then I know that we've had the discussions with Mr. Rigucci about curb-to-curb
right.
replacement when we're done.
And we
So
are getting that.
we won't be patching, or at least that's what he's informed me.
That's good news.
Yeah, so you'll have a new street.
All right. So we will have probably subpar patches for a few months and then a new street.
Typically, what you would have is you'd wind up with a temporary construction patch.
Yeah.
We'd let it settle for the winter, and then at the completion of the project, we'd come through and
Tear the whole-
mill and overlay the road, tear everything back up, everything would have compacted down, and then final grade paving on it.
How does it impact any of the sidewalks along the way? I mean, I know you're taking up the whole road. You know, what happens to our curbing and stuff like that?
Most of our alignments, what we try to do is, we want to stay in the road. We really don't want to be touching sidewalks if we can. In cases where, for some reason, the alignment is impractical, we have to be in the curb line, we'll take the sidewalk up, we'll take all care of, temporary bypasses, police detours, make sure one side of the street is closed, push everybody on the other side of the street. And at the completion, when we're done, just like we repair the roadway, we'd put new curbing in, new sidewalk and everything else in for that location. But typically, we like to stay down the middle of the road as much as possible.
Okay.
Will you be grinding it back, I just want to make sure I understand, you'll be grinding it down to, dirt, I guess, right? The pavement?
No, we'd be typically taking off the top layer. In other words, when our patch goes in, everything settles, we come back along, we'd mill the top coat off, so we'd probably take anywhere from 2 to maybe 3 inches off, depending what's out there.
Okay.
And then we'd come in with a new 1.5 binder coat and a top coat.
I don't know how much
back to
granite
grade.
curbing's there, but we keep
Yeah, that's
putting
my
new roads,
concern.
our granite curbing has done a lot of this, we don't have a lot, there's not a lot showing,
That's what the grinding does. The grinding takes that down, so you don't change the elevation of the
So
road.
it'll be whatever was there before we came through, but we're not gonna pick up that.
Yeah, I mean, and the other thing that we really insist on is, a lot of times people say, oh, just pave it new. If you don't let it settle, you've probably seen it, they go through and they pave it, and then 18 months later, there's a dip, because they didn't let it settle. So that's why we really, best practice is, put a temporary patch on it, let it settle, just the wear and tear, and then go back in and do it right, so it'll last and stand up over time.
So when will you have the roads finalized? When will you have your final project? Is this definite? This is a
Well,
go?
this is a good, we think it's a good alignment.
This is, yeah.
And as is the southern piece that we haven't talked a lot about, although riding up here tonight, I came right up Main Street, popped in over here, I said, geez, I'm gonna talk to Mr. Iguchi again about coming right up Main Street, but I might as well, no, he's giving me the evil eye. Anyway, no, it's, to be honest with you, road construction, like pipe construction, you can't put a shine on a sneaker. It is inconvenient, especially for those folks who live in that street. And usually, if it's in the alignment looks pretty good, the surveying looks pretty good for ledge, what I tell people is, you can do 50 to 100 feet on a good night, depending on the depth and whatever. The bigger the pipe, the less you'll do. So, a couple of days out, they're in front of your neighbor 2 houses down, then they're in front of your neighbor's house the next day, they're in front of your house, and they just keep moving. And what a lot of the contractors do, and what we like, is they'll spend Friday cleaning up. So they'll go in and they'll do 100, 200, 300 feet in a week, 400 feet, and then on Friday is when they come in and sweep it all up, and they put the temporary patch on, so those people have a new street. But, like I say, I don't want to mislead you. You're experienced in this municipal stuff. The road construction is inconvenient. We'd work closely with the police chief on traffic, on details, make sure everyone's safe. The timing issues of, as Mr. Barrett said, of the schools, working through the summer past the school. Are there other sensitive areas that you may be concerned about, a church or something like that? We can work and be flexible on that.
Yeah, I think, obviously, it's a big project, and the end result will be nicer and a better road, so, it would be nice. I think if I lived on one of these streets and I thought that at the end of the day, my road was gonna be in better shape and last longer, certainly would be nice if I thought I was gonna get new sidewalks as well, but, I don't know what your thoughts are on that, the inconvenience to people for that length of time,
We do our best to stay away from sidewalks. We know roads, we don't know sidewalks. And then it triggers a whole bunch of other collateral issues that come into play too when you start filling with sidewalks. But again, trees, if there's been damage to trees, there are things we can do. I think the one thing that we have found as an authority, and we've done a lot of difficult construction. We're just talking about Medford Square, 100 yards from my house, East Milton Square up in Arlington. you know, when we're done, we leave better than we found it. And that's a formula that's worked well for us. We're not looking to get out on the cheap, and it's worked well. We've worked closely with the communities, and we've been working closely here in Stoneham about things, about a staging area. It's a staging area that's mutually beneficial for the town and for us, and how do we do that, and about the tower up on the hill for the police department. Those are things that we're in discussions about how it, you know, it works out and what's mutually beneficial for both of us, so we both come out ahead of the game.
And any of the pipes that are in your way, whether water, drains, sewer lines themselves, you would be replacing as you went along as well, correct?
Yes, within the trench or near.
Within the, if, wherever we have to put our water pipe, if there's typically a local water main that's within our zone of influence, we have to dig it up anyway, and you've got a 40-year-old pipe, we're gonna replace the 40-year-old pipe. It's in our trench, it makes no sense to transport it in place. It's actually easier to replace it than it is to dig it up. That said, we typically try to keep our trench widths to a 4-foot diameter pipe. We're typically an 8-foot diameter trench, maybe a little bit bigger possibly, but, it's not like we're trying to tear up the whole road. We're not taking up the whole road as part of this work.
Thank you. Would you like a quick update on the tank? Take me 2 minutes?
Sure.
I know some of you came out for a tour. We've made some good progress. That's one of the so-called wing walls that you can see the block being put in. The Conservation Commission was there, I believe, last week or this week. They like what they see. This is what the inside of the tank is. It's basically a big swimming pool. It's going to provide redundancy up in this area. There's two 10-million-gallon tanks. There's the pumps. I mentioned the lack of pumping redundancy here. This is a brand-new pump station that'll help Stoneham and the other communities up this way. There's the tanks, both poured in place. You can see the waterproofing is going on the top. You can see the step banking off to the left. It's manufactured, environmentally sensitive banking. You can see them starting to put the crushed stones at the top of the tank drains. There again, you can see the slope, all non-invasive brush that over time will fill in.
That's where the soccer field's going?
Oh, it was going so well. That scab just got ripped right off, didn't it, huh? Anyway, touche. But again, you can see we're making progress. We're at about 90% construction. Frankly, we are a little bit behind, in part because of the difficult winters that we had, the last 2 winters, particularly last year. They still had ice inside the open tank on April 1st. So they lost some time in the sequencing, and it kind of cascades on itself, but it's going along well. We are going to be, we're basically out of Ravine Road. That's going to be paved sometime soon, so we're out of Ravine Road. And for those of you who are interested, the back driveway to the hospital or the medical building is going to be repaved and should be reopened to the normal traffic pattern in the middle to late November. So that's another step forward as we try to drive this tank to its finish. So,
Well, when John and I were up there, we had talked about sort of a panorama that you were going to consider with all of the history.
yes.
Up there. Was that something that you?
Yeah, interpretive signs.
Yes,
Yes, yeah,
yes.
there'll be that, and there'll be, yes. Yes, that's one of the things, and because one of the things that people don't realize is that the Fells, in part, was there because of the water supply. So while everyone enjoys the Fells, the fact that the Spot Pond and over on the Winchester side, the Winchester Res, those are important drinking water resources, and was part of the reason the whole thing was preserved. So, yeah, we'll have a lot of history.
Yeah, and you were going to have the photos of the progress as well.
Yes, yeah,
Oh, good,
yeah,
that'll be nice.
yeah. And if anyone else would like a tour, we can get, there's a kind of a ladder stairway down into it, between now and before it really gets a hard freeze in December. So if anyone would like to, we can take you out there and walk you around. It's pretty impressive to get down inside of there. So just let me know.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, we did have a public, we had a public tour, when was it we had a public tour? But we'll have one in the spring.
Yeah, if you have one, that'd be great to know. It'd be fascinating to see.
Yeah, I apologize for the brain freeze on when we did that. It wasn't this fall.
Okay.
But anyway,
Very good.
okay?
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Fine.
Oh, oops. I guess you could, yeah, sure. Mr. Sullivan.
Sunday hour change in minutes. So,
Should I hang around?
We should do that.
Nah, you might have to.
Well, I don't want to spoil the group hug. Jim Sullivan, 6 Sunset Road. It's funny you mentioned the reservoir, and that Stoneham has got a long history of getting the short end of the stick when it comes to water projects. Spot Pond was basically turned into a reservoir for Melrose, Malden, and Medford, and Stoneham ended up having to buy their water from Wakefield. So now we have another project where Wakefield's getting a new pumping station. We're helping Reading, we're helping North Reading, and what Stoneham gets is 3 years of crappy roads and inconvenience. So, you know, I have to say, recently I've realized that the motto of Stoneham is "What's in it for me?" So I'm going to ask, what's in it for me? I'm going to put up with this for a couple of years. I'm not getting anything. We have an issue with the General Foods pumping station the General Foods factory going offline. It's going to cost us a lot of money. Maybe there's some consideration there that's a little, you know, some consideration. So I'm just, and to the extent that we have the ability to influence this project, I'm sure we can't stop it, but I think the town should avail themselves of any remediation or anything that we can, because we're not really benefiting except, I mean, let's face it, if the water main breaks, you're going to fix it. So I'm not really worried about that. I just think we're putting up with a lot. We're getting very little, except for, you know, maybe a few new roads. So I just think we need to be in a position where we're getting something out of it. So, thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Yeah, you want to, might as well
Well,
answer.
I know that in fact that Melrose, Malden, and Medford did have pump stations prior to the creation of the Metropolitan Water System. And when the Metropolitan Water System was created, that's the dams were put in place, the reservoir was raised up considerably, and that's, you know, Stoneham was one of the core communities came in. You know, we are a regional system. You know, over the period of time, whether it was the initial construction or modern construction, every community bears its burden. And I would just point out that the sewerage that comes out of Stoneham flows down through Melrose and through Malden and into Everett, into Chelsea. So that's the point of a regional system. And while it's going to be inconvenient for Stoneham, there have been other communities, for instance, the tunnel comes up over by the BJ's on the Malden-Medford line, and a massive pipe was driven up through Medford and Malden up here to Stoneham to help Stoneham. So over time, every community has to bear its share of inconvenience. It doesn't make it any easier, but that's the nature of a regional system. And you know, we do have the ability to work with the town on some reasonable things. We can't be impacting the rates because that's the 61 communities, but there are things that we've been in discussions about that would perhaps be beneficial to both the towns. And I don't want to get into, there's no secret to it or anything, but you know, there's a certain amount of negotiations that goes on, and including the alignment and whatever. So in the end, while it will be inconvenience, I think it will help Stoneham. And as I say, if that PCC pipe blows out of the ground, it'll be something on a regional scale like the big water main break of 2010 for Stoneham and Woburn and Wilmington and Wakefield and Reading. It would be devastating, and it would be a dangerous situation. So to get that repaired, I think, and also to get the backup pump station. In the wake of the 9/11 attacks, we had a vulnerability assessment done by the Sandia Labs out of New Mexico, and the Gillis pump station was right at the top of the list, because if that if that was blown up or something, again, would have the same problem. So, you know, we can replace the PCC pipe, we have the added storage up here, and we get the backup pump station, all of which either directly or indirectly benefit Stoneham. So.
Thanks for saying that. And I was going to make one more, I'm going to go back to what I said a little bit ago. And I think that, I know that you guys have been in discussions, and maybe this has been part of it, but when you talk about the brand-new roadways, and I think this is a great project, but when I think about the roadways that are going to be dug up, and I'm living on that road, and I'm driving over it for 6 months, and that's wear and tear on my car, and it's you know, soot and dust coming up on my car and my house, and it does create an inconvenience. But at the end of the day, if I think I have a beautiful road, I'm happy, but I'm happier. Now I think it's like if you paint a room, now your rug looks terrible.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm getting at with the sidewalks, that, you know, if you've got to put up with all of that aggravation, and now it's just this glaring, you know, the sides just look so horrible next to the new road, and you've just put up with all of this, you know, this aggravation, and frankly, a cost to the people that you're going down for. So just, you know, for consideration, I don't know what your thoughts are, but that's gonna look pretty bad when it's done. So, you know, for the sake of the residents that live
Yeah.
on the path, it might be something
Yeah.
to consider, even though you might not do it, you know, maybe allowing us to be able to work with somebody else to put in some nice sidewalks. So it really does look better than it did when
Okay.
you started. That would be great.
And whether you're right about, and I think that's one of the things that we've learned about how long it takes before they come back and clean up the road.
Right.
And like I say, I know the project in Reading right now, every Friday, they're just restoring what they did from Monday through Thursday, so that you're not there for 6 months. It's the impact for that immediate area, whether it be 400 feet or 500 feet, is 4 days.
Right, but as a community, it's not the
Right,
one
no.
house that you go in front of, it's everybody who drives down those streets. They
Right.
don't just drive in front of that house, they drive down North Cottage, right?
Yep.
And so it is the wear and tear on people's cars, it is the soot, it is the
Yep.
dirt. So it would be nice if it really truly did look better at the
Okay.
end, just, you know,
All
for
right.
what it's worth.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Linda, do you have
I
a?
just have one question. William Street and Marble, since we're the area that everybody goes through when 93 and 128 crash, I don't mean literally crash, but get clogged up, you know, everybody comes through here, either north or south. William Streets are also, and Marble are also east and west. And I'm wondering if the traffic portion, other than just at the site, any kind of warnings or anything to people that they know that, you know, as it moves to those spots, that people from out, like even up on 128 or anything, that those things are in, those projects are in place?
We have a number of the portable signs that we put up, and frankly, the traffic plan, we rely on the expertise of the traffic department or division within the police department. They're the ones who set up, okay, this is, if there's a detour, this is what we're gonna do, this is, and so we'll follow the lead of whatever they want us to do as far as the details and the signs and those kinds of things to make sure that, and also public notices if we have to put ads in the newspaper or on the town's webpage, whatever it might be. We'll do whatever we can to try to alleviate the traffic.
But would the state of Massachusetts allow you to put on signs on 93 while you're coming up 28, wanting the 93 travelers that construction's being done on 28?
We could ask. I mean, we have a good relationship with MassDOT. So we could ask, that's a good idea.
They
So-
put one of those signs up there anyways, might as well have that taken.
The highway alert signs.
Don't get off this exit, you know.
Yeah, or we can just, you know, for the first, if they don't let us put it, I think they probably would, but we could just put it right there, the minute we get to your first street, boom. Anyway, we can work on that.
One last thing, I just want to make sure, I see a lot of these projects, maybe they're on Worcester, but we're going to have, the local police will be getting the detail on it.
As long as we're on the local roads, if we're on a state road, I don't know who does 28.
Oh, it depends on which section of 28.
Yeah.
The section you're gonna be going up is state highway, so the state police will probably want those details.
Right.
But all that side street.
The side streets will all be
that's all
Stonehenge.
Stonehenge.
All Stonehenge.
All ours.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate your time. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Lasky.